Okay, so let's get started here again. You will notice that we did create some styles already. We have one for the body, the wrapper, and the hero image. So we're going to continue working in the main .css file that you have linked to your page. So what I'm going to do is I actually don't like the font that I have for my site right now, and I would like to change this font. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what is called Adobe Edge Web Font. So normally browsers will search for the font that's installed on the user's computer. For many years, this has restricted the number of fonts that are available for web designers. If you used a non-standard font, then it was necessary to embed the font in as an image, which really increased the download size. So in other words, if I take this heading right here and I wanted to look a certain way with a certain font, I would have to actually insert this as an image. I mean, you could still do that for your project. It's totally up to you. But you could just use an Adobe Edge Web font and to create your heading for your file. That might make it easier to work on your file. So the situation has changed to the availability of a wide range of downloaded fonts, and Dreamweaver CSS incorporates what is called Adobe Edge Web Font. So it's a collection of more than 500 fonts hosted on Adobe server that can be used in your website. All you need to do is select the font you want to use, and Dreamweaver does the rest. It will generate a link to a remote JavaScript file that downloads the font to browser when your page is viewed. So this project, we're going to look for a font that's called Source Sans Pro. It's an open source font designed by Adobe to be legible both in short labels and in long passages of text. So in other words, we're going to use this font for both our headings, and we're going to use it for our body copy. So what we need to do is just go up to the top where it says modify, and if you look real carefully, you'll see one that says right here, manage fonts right here. It's the second one down. And then it opens up to this dialog box. So you see all these fonts that are available to us. So what I need to do is I just need to type in the font that I want, which is Source. So it all of a sudden pops up. It's this one right here, Source Sans Pro. Okay, now if you'll notice that this is it's not a script font. Now you have to know the difference between a script and a serif font. This is a sans serif font, okay? It has no serifs. So it's real important that you understand that. Sans serif fonts are really easy to read. Their legibility online, especially in the body copy, is very easy. You can use a serif font. This is a serif font that has the little tails. You can use this for your headings, but in this case, I'm just going to use both. I'm going to use this font because I really like the way this font looks, and I'm going to use this for both my headings and my body copy. And I'm going to hit done. Now it generates the font. When we start putting it in, you'll see how it generates the font. So that's all you have to do. Make sure that you're on main.css. And then down, we're going to actually create a new file, a new selector here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the selector again, just like we did before. I'm going to hit the plus button, and I'm going to put in H1, H2, and I'm going to hit enter. So I'm going to create a style for H1 and H2 on my file. You gotta make sure you hit enter really good. I'm going to select text here, and I'm going to choose a color, and the color for the text that I'm going to use is going to be this color right here. It's going to be 3399 CC. And then I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to choose the font. If you open up where it says font family right here, and you'll notice that the font that I chose is all the way down to the bottom. So I just select that. Okay. Now you're going to notice that it all of a sudden changes. But we'll have to go to live view. I'll do that in a minute because you're not going to really see it the way it should look. until we go to live view. Right now it still basically kind of looks like it did before. So where it says font weight, I'm going to actually select 600, which is kind of like a semi-bold. I'm going to hit enter, and now you notice that my font already changes to a semi-bold font. So I need to turn on live view so that I can actually see what this font looks like. Though the font has changed in design in the design view, it is not a source sans font. To view Edge web fonts, you have to turn on the live view. So up here where it says design, you have to turn on live view. So now you can see the font actually what it's going to look like. And let's just file and save. I'm just going to keep the heading now at this font, heading 1 here. I'm not going to try to place any kind of fancy font here. When you start working on your file, you're going to want to make your heading 1 different, uniquely different from all your other files, and place some color for it, and a nice font style that kind of goes with the kind of newspaper that you're working on. So this renders the page in Dreamweaver's version of WebKit, the same browser engine as Safari, Google Chrome, and most mobile browsers. So with Live View active, an external JavaScript file is added to the related files toolbar. Now you can see that right here, and that's really, and don't touch this, just leave it alone. And I'm going to just keep my cursor on main CSS because it's easy to get lost when you're working on this file and start working and not creating your file correctly. So we're going to select body that we had before, and make sure you have CSS checked like up on the top. Let me just move this over so you can see it better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this right here. I'm going to select this font that I had selected Gilsian before. I'm going to keep the color the same color it is, but I'm going to select this Source Sans font for my body copy too. Okay, so it's really important to understand that it's very difficult to read a serif font online, and when you're working and creating on files, you should be very aware of the fact that you should not have more than two sans serif fonts, two different sans serif fonts, or two different serif fonts on your file. This is really important to understand. I mean, it's not that it's a really bad thing. It just sends out a message that you are new at this and don't really know what you're doing. So if you go to some really nice websites, and you'll always see that they use the same serif font, they don't change over, and they use the same sans serif font. They keep everything consistent in the file. So let's just change this body weight to 400 right here where it says font size. I'll put it at 400 just so it gives it a little more weight on our file. So I'm going to file, and you want to make sure that you have your I'm going to go to my file, and I'm going to make sure that I have my style sheet open up. So I'm going to just right click and open this up too. It's very important that we don't forget to do that. So you can see that your files are starting to collect right here. Okay, so you see whatever the changes we've made have automatically gone into our file right here. So I'm going to file, and it's already been saved. So we go back to the index, and you see that it has made an additional file up here in your source file. So we're going to actually toggle live view off for a minute to refresh the display in related files in the toolbar. So let's just go over here and just put it on design for 1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to close this up. So now what I want to do is I want to clean up these this font, since there seems, when you start working in this file and you start placing, picking and choosing fonts, it sometimes will add all the weights in the font. So to prevent that from happening, just go to the command, and where it says clean up font, web font script tag right here, and that will just clean everything up. So only what you need is going to be there. Let's go back to the main. Let's go back to live view. Okay, so far everything looks good. Let's just check the text again. Make sure everything is looking good. So we have our styles in there. You can see it's cleaned up. We just have the one style in there right now. Okay, I just gotta check and make sure that everything is there. For some reason it wasn't showing up, but now it's showing up. So I select main, I can see my H1, H2. For some reason it didn't show up initially. Okay, so everything looks good. So let's just continue on here. So we're going to talk a little bit about margin and padded properties controlling the horizontal and vertical space around elements. In many situations, they can be used interchangeably. There is an important difference between the two. So adjacent vertical margins are combined, but padding is never combined. So if the element has a border, padding goes inside, margins go outside. So always remember that when you're thinking about placing some sort of border on your file, as you know, if you're working on your images or whatever you're working on. The element's background stretches into padding, but margins are transparent. So these are just little things that you need to think about as you're working in your file. So the last point explains why you see a pale blue strip at the top of the page. So if you scroll here and you see this blue right here, you still see this blue. Let's get rid of this. I want to get rid of this. So the heading's margin has combined with those of the header and the wrapper div, and the background of the body elements is shown through the transparent margin grid. So to get rid of the gap at the top of the page, you need to set the top margin of the heading to 0. You also increase the font size, center the text, and convert it to uppercase. So we're going to make a new selector and make sure that live view is active. So I have it right here, and I'm going to make sure that I have main selected, and we're going to go ahead and make a new selector. So we're going to click the plus button, and we're going to make it into a heading 1. So let's just make this heading 1. Then I'm going to hit enter. So before we reset the margin property, we're going to change the text property. So click the text icon right here, and we're going to select medium next to the font size property and select pixels from the menu. So don't worry that the heading disappears just because the value initially is reset to 0. We're going to change this to 72. So let's just go ahead and select the font size here. Right here it says medium, and we're going to change this to pixels, and I'm going to place in 72. Okay, now you see how it all of a sudden gets a little bit bigger. Now if you follow along the paper, it actually makes it real easy for you to do this tutorial that I'm doing here. So I'm also going to select right here where it says center. You can center the heading just by selecting it right here, and that will center your heading. See, now the heading is at the top. Now I want to make this all uppercase, but I don't want to go through and write this whole thing out and make it uppercase. If you notice down here in this little box here, you'll see this box here that says size right here. We can make this all caps. So if you just select here, you have to find it. Transformation, I have to find it too because it's been a, a little bit different than working with, here it is right here, than working with CS6. There you go. So now we have it the way we want it. It's looking a little bit better. So we still have to get rid of that space at the top. So we're going to check the layout icon. That's background, back here at the front, the layout icon. And set the margin. Now you have to find the margin. Margin is right here. We're going to set the top and bottom margin to 0. You have to push enter and enter. And you will notice that as soon as we do that, that space at the top has disappeared. And your file's looking much better now. You know, every little thing that we do and we keep working on, let's just take a look at our style sheet and see what's going on at the style sheet. You can see everything we're doing is going on in our style sheet. I'm just going to save it. I've been working on so many files that I think sometimes it starts getting a little confused. Okay. So I like what I have so far. I'm still in live view, so you're going to stay in live view. Make sure you have main selected again. And we're going to make a new selector. On this one we're going to call main. So just hit the plus button. Let's just go ahead and we're going to call this main. We can actually select it right here. We're selecting our main div. And in the layout section, we're going to hit enter to make sure that it goes in. And we're in the layout selection. I'm going to select percent. And you can actually scroll this up and make it 58%. Okay. And then the left margin right here, you said make sure you have it select left margin. And I'm going to change this to percent. I'm going to actually change this to 2%. And then I'm going to hit enter. And then where it says float left, let's scroll down and find your float, which is right here. It's so easy to work in Cloud. It's so much easier than working in CS6. Once you start working in it, you're going to realize this. You can visually see everything. I'm going to select float left. Okay, so we have set our first selector, our main. So now I'm going to select the right one. So I'm trying to place in actually 2 columns in my file. So the aside element with the ID sidebar automatically moves up into the space alongside the main article because the sidebar is shorter than the main article. And the footer also moves up. And the background color of the wrapper div is cut off. We're going to fix this in a minute. So we're going to create another new selector and we're going to call it sidebar. Make sure you're at main. Select plus down here. We're going to call this sidebar. You can actually find it and hit enter. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I'm in the layout again. And I'm going to put this width at 34%. They're making this column a little bit smaller than the other column. Now you can just think about what you're doing when you're working with a file. You're going to make more than one column, make 2 columns. You know, you just select, you can use percent. I'm using percent because I want this file to, you know, to be able to be used on a tablet or a desktop computer. So I'm just going to select right down here where it says percent. And I'm going to scroll this to 34, making this a little smaller. Okay, and then where it says margin left, I'm going to place in 4%. So down here, the margin, I'm going to make this 4% and hit enter. Okay, and then I'm going to go down to the float, find the float, and I'm going to float this to left, the first icon. Let's see what our page is looking like so far. Okay, so now you see that we have created 2 columns. We have actually have some nice space in this file. I like having space, some white space. You have a little space here with the image, a little space between the heading and the body card. Makes it really easy for your user to read. So far, I like what I have here. So let's continue on to make sure that you have everything the way you want it. So I'm going to make a new selector for the footer. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure I'm on main again. I'm going to select that and I'm going to write in footer. And I'm going to hit enter. And same, everything starts popping up again for the footer. So I'm going to, right now the copyright symbol in the footer moves up alongside the cable car. So I want to correct this problem. Let's just take a look and see what this is looking like. Let's see what the footer is right now. See, it's right down here. So we want to kind of correct this problem. We want to kind of make this look like a footer. Right now it's really not looking like a footer. So we're in the layout section here. I'm going to select clear property to left. Now let's scroll down, make sure you're in the layout. And right here, there's clear. And we find this right here, clear property left. Just select that. Okay, so the footer moves to the bottom of the page. And I'm going to set top and bottom padding. So here's the padding. You have to find these items. They're not too hard. Margin, padding, right here in position. Okay, so I'm going to select the top to 2 pixels. You can, scroll it, but it's kind of hard to scroll when you only have a little small amount. And I'm going to select the bottom to 2. So we're making our size. So now I'm going to go to text and I'm going to put in a nice white text. Just like text, color, it's just FFFFF for white. And hit enter. Okay. And I'm going to select the background color. Actually, I'm going to select the same font family that I've been using. So I'm going to select here where it says font family. I'm going to select the Source Sans Pro. Let me just see what it looks like down at the bottom. Oh, I can't see it yet because I haven't put the color in. So let me put the color in, and then we can come back and check. Let's just put a background color in. I'm going to put a nice blue color, just like I have on my file. Yeah, make sure you have that symbol in front. So the blue color, the background color is going to be 43A6CB, and hit enter. Okay, so let's scroll down and see what we have now. See how it's looking. Okay, so far I like what I have, but I'm just going to change this font. I'm going to go back to my text. And, okay, so it's chose just the Sans Source font normal because we had already put that in there, so we're all set. And as far as the size goes, I'm just going to keep the body weight this as it is. Now if you scroll down to the bottom, if you're in live view, make sure you're in live view, you can actually select your font down there. I can actually move it. So I want to make it like a line underneath the text. So I want everything to align along the left side here. It just makes it look so much better. I can make a space here. I can make a space here. And I can make a space here. And I want to maybe put one more space here. Let's just see how it looks. Okay, I like that better. It doesn't look like it's so congested. If you want to put any more information down there, you can. If you want to put some more navigational links, whatever, you can do that too. And you can just select them and assign the links. It's not really too difficult to do. So far, I think my file is looking much better. We're going to start working on these images here. We're getting close to being done for this tutorial. Okay, so now you have to make sure that you have source main.css and the source still selected. Okay, and we're going to head and we're going to make a new selector and we're going to call it figure. So we're going to select plus here again, and we're just going to write figure FI, and you notice that it pops up because we have it in our file. Hit enter. And so we're in the properties panel. We got to be very careful. It says layout. We have to make sure that we sign width, not height. I just got to put that in. So we're going to select pixels, and I'm going to put 420 in. I'm just going to write it in. It takes so long to scroll it. Okay, so I have my size that I want, and I'm going to create a new selector. Go back to make sure you have main selected, new selector, and hit plus. And this one I'm going to call Fig Caption. So, before we can center the caption, we need to set it at block. So let's just make this first. And this is the caption that goes underneath the image. Remember, we did this before. And hit enter. Okay. So before we do anything, we have to set this at block. And that is where it says display right here. I'm sure you just have to play with these things and try to find what you are looking for. Let's just set the block. Okay, and then I'm going to go where it says width. Make sure you select width, which is at the top. I'm going to select pixels, and I'm going to put in, because I want it to be the same as the image, I'm going to put 420 pixels. So now it's the same as the image. So I'm going to go to the text, and I'm going to select the font. I'm going to select font right here, family. I'm going to select the source. I want to have the same font throughout my file. I'm going to put the font weight a little bit heavier. I'm going to put this at 300. And I'm going to give a size for this font right here. I'm going to put it at 14 pixels. I kind of like working with pixels. Everybody's a little different. I'm just more comfortable working with pixels. You can work with whatever you feel comfortable using in your file. So I'm going to hit 1.4. Okay, so let's see. We're going to align this to the center. So where it says text align, you see right here, text align is fine where it says center, which is right there. So you notice if you scroll down and look at your image, you're going to notice that your Fig caption, your caption right here has aligned very nicely in your image, and your image has aligned in your file. I'm going to file and save this. You should just keep saving as you go through your file. Okay, just make sure you don't forget to save. That's real important. So now there's only one figure element in the base date home page. So if you're creating multiple pages, you might want to apply the same style to multiple elements in a page. So to do this, we need to create what is a CSS class style. Now we've talked about this before in a previous lecture, but I just want to go over it again. So as I stated in my previous lecture, it is similar to an ID, except it can be used for more than once on a page. So IDs, as we have been creating here, it's the wrapper, the hero image, the main, the sidebar. All these IDs are unique within the page and use what is called the hash sign, this little sign in front of it, but they can only be used once. So to distinguish a class style from an ID style, you have to actually put a dot in front of it. In this file, we create 3 class styles, one to center an element, and the 2 others to float the element. So one to float it to the center, to the left, one to float it to the right, and one to place the element in the middle. Sometimes these don't always work. Nothing is perfect in CSS. You just have to kind of play around with the file and just kind of figure out what is going to work best with you. So the first one we're going to do is going to be centered. So I'm going to make sure I have main selected. And I'm going to select right here, the selector again. And this one is going to be dot centered. Now hit. Okay, so now we're creating a class style. So it begins with a dot, okay? Just be careful you don't put a comma here instead of a dot. So in the layout section where we are, you're going to set the left and the right margins to auto by selecting the pixels and selecting it from the menu. So let's just select this and hit auto, and select this and hit auto. So that's right and left, and that's going to put it in the center. So selecting the horizontal margin to to auto centers most elements that have a defined width. Okay, but that's important. If you don't have a defined width, then you can't select the you can't use the center to center your image. However, with some elements, you also need to set the display property to block or inline block. Okay, so remember that we did that before. We with the fig caption, we set it to block first before we did that. So let's create another class selector and call it float left. Just go ahead and make sure you have main selected, and then select down here, and we're going to make a dot again. Float left. Make sure you spelled it right, and then hit enter. Okay, so in this layout, we're going to set the right margin to 10 pixels. Okay, so make sure you're in the layout section right here, and we're going to go to the margin. So this is the left margin, right? So we need the right margin, which is over here, and I'm going to select this the pixels, and I'm going to put in 10. Now if you scroll down to the bottom here, it's going to say float. You got to find float, and I'm going to float this to the left. Okay, so now we're going to create a float right. Go back to the main, have it selected, select your selector. We're going to put the dot in for the class, and we're going to call it float right. Hit enter. Okay, so now we're going to set in the layout section, we're going to select the left margin to 10 pixels. So here's the left margin. I'm just going to put in 10. And then scroll down, and where it says float, we're going to set the float property to right. Just got to find it. Make sure it's right. Okay, so now we have float left, float right, and center. So we have 3 class styles that we can add to our images as we like, or anything that we have in our file. So now we're going to create a little photo effect on my image here, on this very first image here that I have. So I'm going to make the 2 cable car images, actually they look kind of flat. So we're going to appear to make it look like it's popping out on the page by giving it a background color, padding, and a little drop shadow. We're going to do this all with CSS. You can actually do this in Dreamweaver, in Photoshop first if you want to, but it's kind of nice that we have the availability to do this in Dreamweaver. Make sure the live view is selected. Okay, so just hold on 1 minute. Let me just check this through. Okay, so we're going to go scroll down until you find what is figure in the selectors panel right here. And I'm going to select a plus sign right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a descendant of this figure. And I'm going to put in figure, and I'm going to put a space for image. I'm going to choose the image here, and I'm going to hit enter. So what we've done is we created a new descendant selector for figure image. This will affect only images that are nested inside the figure element. Okay, so we're in the layout section right here. Make sure you have that, open to that. Make sure you have that selected. We're going to select the chain icon in the middle of the padding. So find the padding. Padding is right down here. I'm going to select this little icon right here. I'm going to click that. So whatever we put in there is going to go for all the padding for around the whole image. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to put in 10. I'm going to make it pixels. So you'll notice that it put 10 pixels around the whole thing. So in the background section, I'm going to set the color to white. This doesn't make any visible differences yet because it's the same as the background of the wrapper div. So that you have to select it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's find background, which is right there. And I'm going to put in white, which is FFFF again. 6 F's and hit enter. So now we have to locate the box shadow property that's lower down in the background selection. So right here where it says box shadow, this is where we're going to create our little special effect. So I'm going to select the H and the V shadow to 1. So both of these I'm going to keep them a pixel. I'm going to just put in the number 1. Do the same thing down here. So I'm going to scroll down to where it says color, box art shadow, lower background section, and set the color to a medium gray. And this is 6 nines. And hit enter. Right, so now we have this little medium gray. So we're going to select the blur, and we're going to put in 15. So you just have to find the blur. It's right here, and we're going to just put in 15. Okay, so you can see what it's actually doing right now. I really like the way this is looking. So I'm going to file and save this. I mean, you can change this. You can maybe make it 10 if you want, so it's not quite so dominant. It's totally up to you. Want to make it 10? You want to make it more? You can make it 20. I kind of like 15, so I'm going to keep it at 15. That's what I've been playing around with, and I thought that 15 looked pretty good. Okay, so now you just have one last thing to do here, and I'm just going to okay, so we got everything here. So I'm just going to apply it to my last image. I'm going to do kind of the same thing here for this last image. So I'm just going to save this, what I have so far, if it lets me save. And you notice, look at all the styles that we've created here in this page for this image. Now we have this nice style sheet that we've created, main.css, that we can use for all our pages at our site. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this. What I did with this image is I created another selector, and I called it sidebar image right here. And I actually put all the same elements. I went to the layout, and I put in the padding around the image, just like I did with my previous image. It's already set because the sidebar has already been set. And I just want to maintain consistency throughout my file. So you can see now that the file is looking pretty nice. We're getting there. Slowly but surely, we're going to be working on this for the rest of the next 2 tutorials. Should just about do it for this file, and we'll be finishing this page. It's a lot to work on your file in CSS, but as you start getting used to working on it, you're going to be a little more comfortable with how everything is looking and how to use CSS styles. There's one more thing that I just want to talk about before I leave here, is that if I select this image, let's just say I select this image by chance, and I already have it centered and you know, all this stuff already done on this file. But yeah, I can select down here where it says image, and I can right click this. I think I can right click it, make sure I'm in the live view. Let's just try this image here. Right click it, and it opens up to set class. So I can select, you know, we did that dot class style. I can select one of the styles that I had placed here. If I decided I want to add more than one style, I just hit multiple styles, and I can check them right here. You can also do that over here in your properties panel. You can do the same thing. You can select it in the properties panel, and you can apply more than one style. You can do the same thing here. It opens up to the same dialog box. So we're going to continue on and finish up this page, but we're finished with this tutorial now.